I'm standing on top of one of the hills in Missoula, Montana. This is actually Waterworks Hill, and it's just a beautiful place, so I wanted to share it with you guys. Behind me is Missoula, which is my hometown. It's a pretty cool city, I think. It's the second biggest city in the state of Montana. So there it is. Blah, 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 blah. That would be some sort of weed, I'm assuming. I think that's... This right here is a grand specimen of tumbleweed. Alright, so I have my little listy doodad because I don't want to get stuff wrong. The reason why I am making this video today is because... tumbleweed. Is because Montana just hit 1 million people in population, which is pretty cool, or pretty not cool, depending on how you think of it. But the point of this video is I'm very proud of my home state, and I think it's a lovely place to live and grow up, and I hope I can share a little bit of it with you, even if only over the internet. So right now, it's about 4 o'clock, the sun's setting. Montana now has 1 million people, and we have 18,000 dairy cows, to put it in perspective. Some quick facts about Montana. I live in Missoula. I live on the other side of town, so we don't really have room for a horse. But I mean, some people in Montana have horses, and that's really cool. Not upside down. I drew a little picture of Montana. Basically, the Continental Divide, which is right about here, splits the state into kind of thirds, essentially. And the western third of Montana is mostly made up of mountainy areas, while the eastern part of Montana is pretty much all prairie / grassland, which is really pretty in its own way. I grew up in the mountains, so I really like the mountains. The eastern part of Montana is part of the northern Great Plains, and the western part of Montana is part of the northern Rocky Mountains. Also, there are little islands. I didn't draw them in because my picture's not that awesome, but there are little island ranges kind of in the middle third of Montana that are just kind of random. You know, you've got the plains, which are really flat, and then some awesome random mountains, and that's Montana for you. Montana! Alright, so Montana is the 4th largest state as far as landmass goes. And to put it into perspective with your world geography, Montana is slightly larger than Japan and slightly smaller than Paraguay. We have a lot of national parks in Montana. I recently went to Glacier National Park, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I was there when I was about 9 years old, and it was also gorgeous, but it was really nice to go back to it because you have a different appreciation of it once you've kind of grown up a little bit, I think. We also have Yellowstone National Park, which I went to when I was like 4, and that was really cool. There's a geyser called Old Faithful. I'm sure you've seen videos of it. If you haven't, I'll put one in the doobly-doo. And it's just a really cool place. We've got all sorts of things, all sorts of wildlife, lots of wildlife, sometimes in quirky positions and facial expressions. We also are home to 7 Indian reservations / Native American reservations, depending on who you're talking to. Well, there have been people in the state of Montana, you know, living in the state of Montana for thousands of years now. Different indigenous tribes and different indigenous peoples who have just been living off the land or traveling through it and living off of it while they were traveling through it. There were some famous events that happened. The Battle of Little Bighorn and some of the late Nez Perce War battles were fought in Montana. But I think it is interesting to note that not everything that is famous that happened in Montana happened or was part of a war or a battle. Montana was the first state to elect a woman to Congress in 1903, and that woman was Jeannette Rankin. So Jeannette Rankin was one of the few people to vote against going to war during World War I. Hank Green of Vlogbrothers 2.0 lives in Missoula, Montana. Look at that. That's something that hasn't anything to do with war. One more awesome thing that happens in Montana, it doesn't happen in my hometown, but it happens in Glacier National Park, is that at some point in Glacier National Park, there is a triple divide with the water. And that means that the water that happens to be at that area or that point will flow into 3 different oceans, the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and the Arctic Ocean through Hudson Bay, which I think is really cool. So Montana hit 1 million people, which is really, I think, kind of cool. And guess what? There's a dog up there. So no, I did not ride my horse to school. Betty stayed at home with my mom and, you know, the cow, Susie and Pickles. So, you know, it wasn't plausible. They had to help till the earth and stuff so we could plant our corn. My tumbleweed, my precious. This is so awkward. I don't know why I chose this place to film. It's the first largest landlocked state. So the other biggest states are California, Texas, Alaska, and then us. I didn't do those in order, by the way. Alaska is the largest, and don't listen to me. Blub, blub, blub. In fact, there are 3 rivers that run through Missoula, Montana, and there's the Clark Fork, the Bitterroot, and the river.
I've never been like around the river during winter like this.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm filming you.
Filming.
Cool. I think we're good.